This is a Ventra Pro video on setting up and adding variable lighting. So that's lighting that goes to a dimmer. So externally there will be a dimmer that will take a 0 to 10 volt supply, set it so that that's what's running the light level. And we'll just go through, first of all, adding the device to the controller. So we're going to system setup first of all. And under system setup, we'll arrow down to press enter to add a control device, hitting enter, and may have to plus or minus to find it. In this case, I'm at vary lights, which is using the module that we have in here, our analog output module, to put a 0 to 10 voltage reference out for which corresponds to a 0 to 100% lighting on the dimming. So we're going to call this number 1, zone number 1 for this room. Module number 2 in this case, because that's what we set the analog output board to be, and then we'll use channel 1 as the channel for this. So now that device is added to the system. To check to make sure it's there, we can go to system setup, and then to the right a couple to get to our variable lights. So it's there. And now the settings for variable lights. How do we set up variable lights? Well, we have slot number 1 of a setting, and in this case we'll need in order to use it, we'll have to have a positive age. So we'll start with age 1, and we'll just show a couple of settings on this. So let's say we're going to go from leave this at the 0 and make it midnight. We'll bump this up to 22. So we're going to have basically 22 hours of daylight provided, and we'll make our level to be, let's just call it 50%, which will be 5 volts on. I've got a voltmeter here on the output rather than an actual dimmer, so it gives us an indication of what it's actually doing. Then the next setting is this a setting for with a ramp up and ramp down, a dawn to dusk? That's what the D/D stands for. So it basically ramps up ahead of the setting for it to come on at the full 50% brightness, and then and after. The other option is to set this as a light spike. So we'd probably do a lower duration, minimum of 1 minute duration you could have, but obviously you might want that to be longer. And that would just be a period where it would bump the lights up to whatever that percent setting is, and spike it to that, and leave it there for a minute, 2 minutes, whatever length of time we choose based on the time of day settings. And then you'd be able to use that as a way to stimulate the birds. But in this case, we'll just set a dusk to dawn. So it'll have a ramp up, ramp down. We'll hit enter to accept that. I have to wait just a sec here while it's saving things to the SD card. We'll arrow down now to what's our minimum ramp percentage. So let's say we need it to come on at least 5%. So that's the minimum. Sometimes, depending on the lighting, it's not going to want to come on at a real low percentage off your dimmer. So that's what that's for. And then it's going to ramp basically to that 50 that we set. We'll also notice that we have an off to on. So that's basically the dawn when it comes on, how many minutes to ramp. So if we hit enter, and let's say we give it 5 minutes to ramp up, and then we'll go down to the on to off, which would be like the dusk setting. We see that it's already ramping. Our voltage is going up from half a volt, which would be the 5%, and it's up to 7% and going up now because it's now seeing those settings in place. because it has the duration for doing that. We'll set the dusk setting also to 5, and it should ramp right up to 5 volts because we want it to be full intensity. After 5 minutes it'll be at the 5 volts. So that's the rate that it's changing right now, so you can see that on there. Run 4, this setting is a setting for if you need to have the lights like at full intensity while you're working in there and you just want that to happen for 10 minutes. You can set 10 minutes or a number of hours, whatever amount of time you want to run at whatever percent, like 100%. So if we just set this for, let's say I just want it to run for 1 minute, and we'll do it at 80%, 100%, yep, 100%. Now we see it goes straight to 10 volts. So it's going to do that for this 1 minute period, and then it'll go back to where it was in the ramping. So, and then the number of slots that we have, as we roll back to the top, it's number 1 is our first slot. We can put in at different ages. So let's say no, I don't want to change this one. We'll just hit the plus key once we're to get to slot 2. Now we'll just do an age 8. So after a week, we're going to change this to be coming on at 2 in the morning, and we'll do off at 21, just as an example, and we'll still use, maybe we'll change our value here to something other than the 50. So whatever the recommendations through the universities and so forth are for, and we'll just do another dusk to dawn. And we can put in up to 50 different slots in here. So we can see that on the voltmeter that it's gone back to ramping after a minute was expired of temporarily running it at full intensity, and now it's back to at half of the 10 volts, which would be 50% intensity. And that's basically how you can set up and operate light dimmer, variable lights as we call it, vari lights in our controller.